Analyze shows up to a millionth human beings dwell in areas in no legislative aid regulation for habitation, in a future 15 millionth in areas in one supplier. Campaigning team Freedom told accessing to judiciary had been considerably undermined. The Ministry of Judiciary told it took immediate activity whenever it had concerns above regulation. Richard Milling, machine operator, Chief of Judiciary at the Law Community, told regulation of legislative consultation through England and Wales was vanishing, creation, legislative aid deserts. Though for such cases wherever legislative aid is yet imaginary to be accessible, it can be really hard for customers to discover an attorney readily to get on the instance, he told. That has induced a more than rather than five-fold growth in human beings presenting themselves in trial. Voluntary at the private supporting block helping about 65,000 of them recent year. 6 years ago it was less rather than 10,000. Ian Howgate effectively fought 2 trial cases, one following lack to discover a legislative aid lawyer. The 54-year-old of Berkshire told his household was residing under the breadline for more than rather than a year following their habitation gain was stopped in 2015. They were capable to supervise in the supporting of friends, and following winter his instance Mr. Howgate recovered £15,000 in loose revenue of his regional credibility. 2 months up how instance was finished his child, newly undiagnosed as with autism, was unjustly sent of high school and Mr. Howgate had to give a discrimination instance on his name up a specific education as necessary court. Human beings requirement to aware the could be them next day, he told. We weren't capable to though discover a lawyer who, had we had the cash, would be capable to transactions in the instance. Mr. Howgate, who had been undiagnosed in post-traumatic stress disorder, told the court expertise had a drama impact on his psychological public health, and he had envisaged take his own lifetime as the instance loomed. Preparation for it was unbearable, he told. It is horrifying. As a layman departure in how court it is love game the raffle wherever yours hole next is at share. If you do not act yours cards order, you are never departure to pardon oneself. The issue is recognized by trial personnel, who try to search a equitable result in litigants in man. Malcolm Robertson, elderly 70, retired as a household trial judge in August following serving 37 years on the seat in the Bristol region. He told legislative advisers were more possessing to manual litigants in man via the trial of need. It puts all the judicial in a hard stance but as well burdens the entire trial framework, he told. We are not down there to sit as suggest, but as a humane creature who has devoted themselves to judging their comrade man on susceptible issues, we all wish to do the order judgment. On lot occasions in my court, human beings include been diminished to burst into tears, incapable to manage and incapable to put their type striker. Hard to assist them do how is a excruciating expertise for everyone. The Legislative Assistance, Sentence and Penalty of Offenders Act 2012, LASPO, withdrew aid of areas of law consisting household, well-being, habitation and obligation. It as well reduced the tool testing and utilized machine admissibility for such in receive of tool-tested benefits. Solicitors work on legislative aid contracts say they include to rotate human beings off each solitary date, but down there is no much longer everywhere to email them. Nicola Mack QC, Single Main of Mack Act, told, we see human beings more than frantic and in more than excess requirement rather than they were 5 years back, and down there is anywhere to email them. Such human beings are unseen to the framework. Her company specializes in Society Thoroughness Act, mainly for incapable human beings. In nearly part of society thoroughness providers relying in London, she wandering through the nation to achieve clients. She told, before LASPO, we had a web of consultation centers, cabs, law centers and expert top street practices. It was not ultimate, but it was cute nice. Now we include a full decimation of the consultation and presentation web. All recognizes incapable human beings include rights, but if you do not ensure the consultation and presentation to them, such rights are theoretic in experience. The human beings solicitors include to rotate off will appear in some social services, but just following their problems include spiraled out of monitoring, says Steve Hines, CEO of the Legislative Activity Team. He told the absence of legislative aid delivery was disgusting. Time the MOJ told it keeps presence by continuous overview. To lot human beings through the nation, receive assist of a legislative aid attorney comes downward to a postal code raffle that they are intended to miss, told Mr. Hines. LASPO's objectives turned on manufacturing considerable saving and supplying superior common importance for cash. But expert and campaigners say it has just displaced the load of price on the courts, NHS and public thoroughness, eventually standing the country more than. And Labour's Dark Secretariat of Country for Judiciary, Richard Bugan MP, supported the faith intermittent to legislative aid include been a erroneous economics. A absence of previous legislative consultation can build superfluous expenses for the payer as legislative problems go to trial while they could include been solved over or helical inexpensive public problems as human beings miss their homes or jobs, he told. He added, these figures allocate the gloomy fact of a judiciary framework in meltdown. These legislative aid intermittent include intentionally weak human beings' capacity to problem injustices and force their rights. Gaps in regulation of civilian legislative aid are frequently imbued by law centers, that include shaped in communities with the 1970s to encounter requirement in more than devoid areas. But 15 centers include had to shut with LASPO, 11 in the at first 18 months, as financing was closed. Nimrod Ben-Non, chief of politics at the Law Center's web, told the legislative aid marketplace was lack as intermittent include destroyed regional ecologies of consultation. Legislative aid deserts seem while down there are not quite regional providers of legislative aid, usually since of the legislative aid agent's priority of less, greater agencies, importance how if such drag out of a regional region down there is slight regulation leftward. Mr. Ben-Non told, this lose goodwill, object examination and regional expertise would get period to be remodeled, but it is urgent for communities how they are remodeled. An MOJ representative told down there were quite solicitors and barristers for penal legislative aid underfunded cases through England and Wales. Each man should include accessing to legislative consultation while they requirement it, hows why the legislative aid agent keeps presence by continuous overview and conducted immediate activity whenever it has concerns, she added. The by the government is enterprise a overview of the impacts of LASPO, anticipated to be published by the end of 2018.